Hey, what's going on? This is Trap with Road 740 Inc. Here with my gorgeous wife, Summer Rae Swope. Hi, darling. Thank you for doing this with me.
Hi, honey.
So, as usual, what we're doing is we are trying to spread the word, spread knowledge about GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, or CIDP, Miller-Fisher syndrome, as much as we can. And tonight we're going to talk just a little bit about, this will be a short one. We're going to talk just a little bit about communication and how to communicate with your loved one when you're paralyzed or partially paralyzed. Some folks get paralyzed from their knees down, some from their waist down, some from their neck down. I was unfortunate enough to where I was paralyzed from head to toe, but before that happened, I lost all movement. I lost all the abilities of my body for moving except for my eyes, and I gotta say that was terrifying because I felt it coming. So I knew, soon enough, I'm going to go blind and I'm not going to be able to communicate with anyone. I'm not going to be able to tell people, how much pain I'm in or, if I'm having anxiety or what's going on with my body. And so what we did is one of our family members, your cousin, Asia Bo,
Yep.
and his girlfriend came to the hospital one day, and they brought a dry erase board so that we could figure out a way to communicate. Because we didn't know how much time I had before I went fully paralyzed and lost my eyesight. So I don't know if you do you have that available so we could show people what it looks like?
Yeah. So basically, when Asia Bo kind of presented the idea, right? He's like, Asia Bo, which is my cousin, and my also cousin Dave said, hey, pretty soon we're going to have to come up with some kind of way to communicate with Trapper. And this is what we've thought of. And I was going a million miles a minute in a million other ways, which I'm sure a lot of wives or family members are not thinking about this because I wasn't. But thank God for my family. And they were like, hey, look, you got to start thinking about this. How are you going to communicate with him in a couple weeks where he can't talk to you anymore? And I was like, what? That's not going to happen. But it did. And so he brought me a whiteboard. I'm going to grab it. And just simple whiteboard from, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a glare.
Yeah, it's a little shiny, but we can get the gist of it. We can see it for the most part.
Yeah. So just, it's kind of like at first I had a hard time realizing like what I was doing, but it took me a minute. So it says at the top of the board, it says, look up for yes, right? So I wrote that at the top of the board and because I wanted everyone to understand like how you were communicating with us, right? Because they could put the board in front of you, but if they didn't know how to use the board, then it's pointless. So it says look up for yes, which meaning, when I pointed at a letter, you would look up. Oh, gosh, I wish there wasn't a glare. But when I would point at a letter, and every line would have a letter. So the first line has one, and then there's like A, B, C, D, E, right? And then the second line has line 2, and then it goes so forth, and all the way down to the bottom. So it was time consuming, but I would go letter by letter and line by line, and I would point at the letters, and I would hold it in front of you, and I would say, line 1, and you could not communicate, right? Because you either had a trach or you were either intubated or you had your trach and you just couldn't move your mouth and you could only look at me. And I'd point at 1 and you'd look up. So I knew whatever letter you were looking for was on this line, right? So it is time consuming. But then I knew you'd look up, and then I'd go down the line, A, and I'd say it, and I'd point at it, because you'd get super frustrated if I wouldn't say it, right? Because I think at sometimes you were like, it was hard for you, and you wanted to hear it. And
That's true. I think you bring up a good point. Hearing that the audio, or hearing it said aloud, was beneficial.
Yeah.
And for both of us, because you end up, you're writing the letter down as I look up for yes.
Yeah.
Whichever line it may be, and then you go down the line, A, B, look up. Okay, cool. Some of the things that were difficult for me, and it's not so much that I was frustrated going through the process. I mean, this is all we had, and this was awesome. Is that we were even able to communicate this way. But it's not that I was frustrated with you, or frustrated that it took a certain amount of time. It was frustrating because I was running out of energy.
Yeah.
It's like watching, the battery on your iPhone go down. I'm in like low power mode, right? It takes everything I have to look up. And so if you would think I meant, B and I meant C, or vice versa, or A,
then we start over. Yeah.
Then we have to start all over. And that just took so much energy out of me. And I only had a certain amount to use at all. Right. And I'm using every ounce of energy that I got, but into looking upward,
You have to admit, though, this worked for us probably for a good couple of solid weeks, because
oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, this was the doctors would come in, and they knew that we had this board, and they would look to us to communicate with you through the board. And so the entire Loma Linda Hospital would sit there and stand and wait, with all their residents and all their, attendings, and everybody would sit and stand and wait as you would spell out words to communicate with them through the board. And I know it was hard, and I'm not bypassing that. I'm just making sure that people who are watching this understand that for a person that is trapped like you were, it is the only way that you can communicate, and to have everyone slow down and actually be able to listen to you that through this was amazing. I mean, I think that it gave you a voice that you didn't have because you couldn't speak. My cousin came up with this idea, and I have no idea how he thought of this, because it's not like we have family members that have ever been in this type of situation, but that, his brain just went there, and he even gave me the lettering, the numbering. He was just like, hey, letter every line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make it simple, like, and then go to line 1. So he has, more direct focus, and it worked for us for several weeks.
And that's all we had. So
I mean,
that was amazing. And
people would try to use it.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I remember towards the end, when I was getting closer to, losing the strength in my eyelids, in my eyeballs to be able to move them at all. Towards the end there, like, as soon as you would get there in the morning, if you weren't able to stay the night, or if, somebody else would come in and attempt to use, another family member or friend that would stop by, or even the doctors for that matter, would come in, or the OTs or the PTs, nurses would come in, you know, and some of them got pretty good at it, at understanding me, you know, but
at the top of the board, it says look up equals yes. So we made sure everyone knew that. Everyone across the board knows that. When you have nothing but looking up, nothing up but your eyes, they have to start asking you yes and no questions. And when you look up, that's yes. So we made sure that was across the board with everyone that walked in the door.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point too, that when Bo told you to make it simple, I think that was super important because, you know, I had very limited strength at all, you know, like we said. And but there's a couple of things. So I think not just Loma Linda, but other medical facilities have boards like this, you know,
They do.
And they have, but it's so complicated. There's,
and it's,
you know, pictures and it's tiny and, you know, I think they're on a good track there. They had the right idea.
Right.
You know, but simplifying it is really where it's at. I think looking back now, though, what I could have used is adding a couple of things to it to make it simple, you know, not because spelling out words or sentences just took everything I had. But if we could have added something, you know, like, because I mean, not only did we get good at it, you and I, but you know me.
Yeah.
And you know when I get there, I'm probably hot. Take the covers off me. I'm thirsty, even though I can't drink anything. So inject some liquid into me. Give me an IV of saline, whatever it takes. You know, I need my hands out of the covers. You know, I need my fingers spread out. Just all the little details that I need on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You already know that I need that. But you know, in the other boards that the medical facilities had in Loma Linda, and this in particular, you know, they have all these different areas, but like things like we could have added, you know, very simple, like a little box of like 10 words, right? Could be like hot, cold, pain, you know, blanket, elevate your feet, elevate your hands. Very, very simple, you know, just keep it as simple as possible. But those things that take forever to spell out, and if you're in pain, where, you know, which is, it's a fine line to help and then to not overcomplicate it like their boards do, you know, with too much stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been beneficial just to have those couple little things, you know, like I said, like, are you in pain? Yes, look up. It's one thing. I don't have to spell out pain. And if we mess that up, we got to erase and start all over, you know, and like that took forever. But overall, I mean, this kept us talking to one another for, like you said, weeks.
Well, I think a lot of the time, because I did know you so well, you know, and everyone, you know, it could be a parent for their child, or it could be a cousin for their family member. It could be someone who doesn't know someone as well as we know each other. So those things could be beneficial. Like you said, and the hospital does typically provide you with a little tiny board, but it is super tiny. And it does have it has like body parts, and you can point at the body parts, but you can't point.
Right. But and also, babe, if you remember, at that point, at that stage in time, my vision was going.
Yeah.
And so even with my glasses on, which I'm not required to wear them all the time, but my vision does get blurry on and off. Even with my specs on, I couldn't see them. Sometimes I would go through those phases where your guys' faces are blurry.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even recognize I mean, yeah, I knew who was in front of me by voices because I never lost my hearing, but I knew who was in front of me, but I couldn't see. I
The
couldn't see
board.
faces. I couldn't see the
Yeah,
board.
so that's why you
You know,
wanted me to say A when I pointed
out
at it,
loud.
B when I
Exactly.
pointed at it. Um,
Right.
it is a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not a lot of work, and I'm not saying it's not going to be frustrating for the person that's actually, you know, looking up for every letter. But it is the way that you communicated with us and you could speak to the doctors. So I think the most beneficial time was when, because I'd come in every morning and I'd ask you those basic questions, right? So I think every family member should know and should have those basic questions for that person that their loved one is there in the hospital. Are you hot? Are you in pain? The nurses are going to ask those questions anyway, but that's your loved one. So when I came in every morning, I would check you, like I would basically do my little assessment. I would make sure your hands were above the covers. I'd make sure your fingers were spread. I would make sure your IVs were all straight and not kinked. And I
Right.
would make sure that your feet and your legs and everything you were positioned in a
My arms aren't swollen,
right.
or
And I would make sure
have
that you were in a
rashes
position
or
that was
whatever.
normal to the position that you would normally be in at home. Not some weird random like spot that you couldn't move and they put you in, and like I would do what I needed to do because I knew it was you. And here nor there, I think that everyone should look at their loved one and do the same, right? So if their loved one
Yeah.
sleeps on their side, maybe they should make like tilt their loved one to the side more or whatever. But
Yeah.
when I would come
And
in,
I
I would
appreciated that
always,
for sure.
yeah, I would always ask you the normal questions. And I would know before grabbing the board. The board was my last go to because I knew that it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work for me. It was a lot of work for you because every letter I'd spell out at the bottom and you'd go on in like a sentence. And sometimes your sentences were like, I don't know what that means. And it would take me a minute. And like, if I'd miss a letter or if I'd like, have a moment where it would take me a minute. So I would ask you simple questions in the beginning. Are you hot? Do you need your, medication? Did you get this? And I know already what you
Yeah.
had already gotten. And I kind of like, but are you in any pain? Can I move your legs? Like the simple questions I would already ask you. And then if you'd look up, you'd give me the answer. If there's the person that's in the position that can't look up anymore, when you're in the state of not being able to communicate at all, that's when I made decisions for you. But that to me is the most
Yeah.
terrifying place that any
Yeah.
person could
And
ever be.
yeah, and I appreciated that, and the fact that you just came in and knew, you knew me, you knew what I liked and what I needed, or didn't need or didn't want, um, and one of the things that was really important to me and really just, um, something that I needed and something I think everyone needs, and for the simple fact that I lost the ability to communicate at all, even with my eyes, is skin checks.
Yeah.
And because, for me to, go through that process with you of looking up and spelling out a sentence of
Mm-hmm.
what I know is wrong, or that I need somebody to look into, like, and 1 out of 4 or 5 of my IVs is bad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
which one? Why? Has it been in too long? Is it infected? Is there a blood clot? Why is my arm so swollen and huge? Like
Yeah.
regular skin checks that I think when you're in for so long, and I think when you're in ICU type situations, and not even so much for a disease like Guillain-Barré or CIDP or Miller-Fisher, it's when you're in that environment, a lot of those people are there for for the rest of their lives, or they're terminal, or they got in a car accident, or they have ALS, or MS, or whatever it may be. And I think when they're in that sort of position and they're in there for so long, I think the nurses almost get complacent in that they sort of stop, doing those checks. I mean, not to say
Well,
they don't do a
I
great job. They
disagree.
do.
Yeah, I
Go on.
disagree. I don't think that they stop. I definitely did not see any nurses or doctors or any healthcare professionals in the time that you were in the hospital stop checking you. They checked you. I think it's just a matter of how well they check you, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think that they constantly are looking at you and they're constantly monitoring you and they're constantly, moving you from side to side. But I think that the number of checks and balances is so long, like they
Yeah.
forget that you're actually a person and that you're
Yeah.
actually, fighting for your life in that situation, or, whatever the case may be. And they forget that, you know, I should probably slow down and stop going through my checks and balances as fast as I possibly can and realize that maybe I should just look at this person as a human, and or maybe that was my husband or my parent or my brother or my sister, and look at them like that and say, okay, well, if that was my brother or that was my sister, did they brush their teeth today? Right? Let's check their teeth.
Yeah.
Let's check their armpits, right? Like, because I found, which, you know, um, no one's fault, but it happens. I found that, at one point while you were in the hospital, they gave you a bath at night, and I came back in the morning,
Yeah.
and your arm had been sitting with moisture in it for a long enough period of time that it had now started bleeding because you
Yeah.
couldn't move it. And, you know, I wanted to be super upset, right? But who am I upset with? Am I upset with the person who gave you the bath? Am I upset with the hospital? Am I, it's like, it comes to a point where you're just like, what's the point here? Let's fix the problem. Let's move forward. Let's not let this happen ever again. Right?
Yeah.
So,
And I get it. And you're
I mean,
super overwhelmed already.
right. And you cannot communicate. So this is probably like burning and stinging. And so
Yeah.
anyone with your condition is going through this and thinking like, so for example, if this was my brother, right? Say my brother is in your position, not you're my husband. So I feel, and I'm going to admit I'm a little bit different than most people probably, where no matter if it's my brother, my dad, my mom, my cousin, I would be in there wiping their ass because that's just me. But not everyone's like that. Some people are like, I'll give you your privacy. They feel like
Yeah.
they're intruding on your private space and whatever. Me, I felt like you're my loved one. I'm going to be there for the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And I would have done that for anyone in my family, right? Like, I don't care if it's my dad, right? As
I understand.
uncomfortable
I
as that might
agree.
be. Well,
But
not everyone's
a
like
lot
that.
of people, well, not everyone's like that. One, but two, in the ICU or in some of those, levels or floors, if you will, they don't have loved ones coming. How many people in the months that we spent in the hospital, how many patients did you see that had absolutely nobody that came and visited them?
Well, that's a different topic, but Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, they don't have someone to do that. So
Right.
they're relying on the system to follow their checks and balances to
Right.
make sure that they're doing their skin checks and what have you, because they can't communicate and they don't have loved ones that are there,
Right.
checking their body and doing all what they need to
And
get
that at
done.
that point, the hospital is doing the best they can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not our place to advise, right? That's out of our realm. That's out of you and I's
Yeah.
communication of what is best, because they've done their research, they've done their safety protocols, and they have all their standard procedures in place for these things, and they do what they do for those people. And unfortunately, I wish I could be an advocate for everyone that didn't have someone, because I don't mind it. I feel like, like there was a woman that was 2 doors down from you that her husband fell in the bathroom, and they had no children, and they were like in their 70s or 80s, and and I just happened to run across paths with her because one day you ended up being in the room that her husband was in. And I know this is a side story, but she got a phone call in the middle of the night that her husband went into cardiac arrest, and she came in the next morning frantic, as anyone would be, and she came into your room because that's where her husband was. But because he went into cardiac arrest, they moved him, and you took his room, and he did not pass, just so everyone knows that. But that's how her and I crossed our paths, and God placed her in my path so that I could communicate with her and let her know that if she needed me for anything, I was there, because she had no kids, she had no siblings. I think her husband had a sister that was there with her, but she was doing it all by herself. And so when the doctors came in and talked to her about all these things, and he did go into cardiac arrest, but they brought him back and he was still in the hospital. And I reached out to her because at that time I felt like, why not? I'm here every single day advocating for my husband. I will advocate and help anyone who is here that I can help. And I'm not saying advocate as in I'm like going against the system. That's not what I'm doing. I'm never going against the system. I'm making sure that my husband gets the best treatment and gets the most attention that he can get. Because sometimes in the hospital setting, like my husband said earlier, people get, comfortable in their positions. They get comfortable, or I don't like using the word complacent because it just makes it feel like people don't care, because I don't want to say that about Loma Linda, because I don't feel like anyone didn't care.
Yeah.
I feel like they all cared, and they all took their jobs very seriously. But there comes a point in time where you care so much, but nobody else is there caring, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do? Right? You're an employee, so you can't be like, hey, do more for this guy when you're an employee. So I feel like when there's advocates, like a family member, or, even a family member's friend, or whatever the case may be, saying something that the hospital's not hearing, they have to do something. Legally, they have to do something. So I told her at that point when I met her, I said, I will do anything you need. I'll be your court reporter, right? I'll just make notes for you. I don't have to say nothing. But I wanted her to feel safe and secure that she had someone that wasn't going to be in the system that would be there for her to help her. And I think everyone should feel that. And I never felt that when I was in the hospital. Nothing against Loma Linda's case management team, but they're not the best.
I lost you for a sec.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
out of all the people in Loma Linda that we met, I think the only ones that I could, really complain about is the case management teams and like that system. I think that system falls short. They're not helpful. They're not
Yeah. There,
comforting. Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot that goes
I
into
mean,
it
and you
as
don't
far
even
as
know that
case
side.
management and protocols and insurance and
Yeah.
this and that. No. I'm
If you
just
knew that
now
side,
starting to get it all, get the whole picture, not even, bits and pieces. I lived those however many 5-6 months that I lived in the hospital. I lived a completely different life than you guys
yeah,
did on the outside. When I was locked in and trapped, I was in a completely different world,
yeah.
different realm altogether. So those kind of things, I didn't even know
Well, if you,
existed.
you're such an intelligent, vocal individual, right? So I think that's why the board worked so well for you. Honestly, to be completely honest, back to the reason of communication, I think the reason the board worked so well for you is because you, before you lost the words to communicate, you were like on it. We were communicating, we were researching, we were doing it together. So when you stopped being able to talk with me, I couldn't have that, right? I needed to speak with you. So this is my way of making that happen. Um Not everybody can do that. But um there was a moment when the case manager came in and you were fully awake, but you couldn't speak. And I'm sure you heard a lot of these conversations, but you might not have, put them all together and at the timelines and whatnot. But she literally took me to the computer, right? And this is my representation of how poor the case management system is at that hospital. The only negative thing I have to say at the hospital is that she took me to the computer and said that they wanted to move you to a long-term facility, right? They wanted to take you out of ICU. You were deteriorating daily, not getting better. And they didn't know what to do with you because they didn't know what was wrong. And they hadn't run any of the tests. And basically, she was saying that they're throwing their hands up. This is the case manager, right? Right. And I'm sure she's getting this information from other people. But so she said to me, he needs to move to a long-term facility. So she takes me to a computer and she shows me all of your stats, right? Your blood work, your this, your that. And she shows me this on a computer as we're in the room sitting with you, and you're fully on a ventilator, fully on a feeding tube, hooked up to multiple IVs. And she's showing me a computer telling me the reasons you need to go to a long-term facility. And I looked at her and I said, respectfully, I disagree with you. I'm not going to make a scene, but I want you to get out of my husband's room and don't come back with this information until you have something better to say. And we are not leaving, because she wanted us to leave ICU and go to a long-term facility. And I know that's a lot of cases like these.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I appreciate that because so many times, and I've been hearing this, the more I reach out, the more people that I interact with, I hear that
Yeah.
over and over and over again. We're not sure what to do. We're not sure where to go from here. You know what? You know what he needs? Physical therapy, a
Yeah.
long-term nursing facility. That's what he needs. Send him out somewhere else to die.
Yeah.
That's how I take that.
Yeah.
And I get that ICU, is for
Intensive
people
care
that are
unit.
in, yeah, I
Intensive
mean,
care
they're,
unit,
yes,
right?
it's intensive care. They need critical treatments. They need, around the clock monitoring. They need access to doctors and nurses 24/7.
Right.
So to me, that seems like, and maybe we need to call it something different then.
Right.
But
make a different floor in the hospital.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not intensive care, so it's not a gunshot wound to the head. It's not a stroke,
but
right? Because
they still need to be there.
That's what I was told. Your husband is not a gunshot wound, and he's not a stroke victim, so he cannot be here. And to me, I was just appalled, literally appalled at the whole system at that point when they stated that to me. And the doctor who stated that to me had been in the system since he was a nurse, right? He started as a nurse and he went up to be a doctor. And for someone to say that at a level 1 trauma unit hospital to someone whose husband is dying in the hospital, I was shocked. I was literally appalled. But I just, like you said, I don't think they know. I think that they just want to go, what else can we do? We don't know what else to do. So we can't just let him sit in here and occupy a room just because he's dying.
We need to have that, happen somewhere else.
Right?
Send him somewhere else.
Send him somewhere else because we don't know. We can't give him a surgery. He's not a gunshot victim. He didn't have a stroke. We don't, in an ICU, we don't know what to do here. Right? Which is sad. It's really sad because there was many doctors that we came across that were like, no, he's staying here. I had one doctor, Dr. Mainville, he said, no, he's not going anywhere. Even Dr. Howe, he's not going anywhere. Don't worry about it, Summer. He's not going anywhere. But as everyone knows, doctors are on rotation. So after a week of rotation or so, someone else comes on, and that someone else has control.
Yeah.
And when someone has control, they tend to do what they feel is best, or they want to, appease the protocol of the hospital, which was one doctor's main goal in life. His main goal was to make sure that the hospital was tip top in shape and all the
let's not mention his name.
No, all the boxes were checked and all the things were done, and Trapper was not where he Trapper can't be in the ICU because he doesn't fit the protocol. Well, at that point, Trapper was dying, and they sent him over to a location where he shouldn't have been, and at that point, you deteriorated more, and it was a step back in your situation, which I'm sure a lot of people have gone through or are going through. And all I can say is at that time, all I did was fight as hard as I could against the system. I lost, obviously. And you paid the price for it. You deteriorated with no one watching, which was horrible, right? It was horrible for me to watch. It was horrible for all of us to watch. And then you got put back into the mainstream of society, of med center, of, ICU life again. And they all went, what happened? And here or there, the conversation here we're having is about communication, and the communication that you and I continued to have was as hard as it is for family members and people. I know my whole family makes fun of me because I read your lips, but
yeah, you were the best at it.
I don't know how. I'm by no means good at it. I just knew.
Yeah, you were pretty good at it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you and I got into a pattern where I could, but the board helped. I read your lips. When you stopped communicating, I just knew, I knew to make the best choices for you. This whole conversation is on communication. And I think that when it gets to the point where your family member needs you to communicate for them, I think that you just need to remember, for myself, I remembered you as you, and what you liked and what you didn't like. Like, you always wanted a fan on. I don't care if you're freezing and you're covered in blankets. You wanted
Yeah.
a fan on. Like,
Yep.
just remember the things that your family member loves. Like, just because they're in the hospital doesn't mean they're not them. Right? So I think that those are the things that I want people to watch this podcast and take away when they're looking at communication with their family member. Come up with your system, whatever that system may be. Ours was looking up. That's yes, right? There's no.
Yep.
No is just don't look up. But you look up, and that's yes. Don't overcomplicate it. We had our boards so you can spell out words because you decided one day you wanted to spell out, what was that disease you wanted them to test you for?
Botulism.
Yeah. You looked up every letter of botulism because I didn't know how to spell it. And you knew that because you know me. And you spelled out every letter of botulism. And I showed that to the doctors when they walked in, and they all laughed because you couldn't move an ounce of your body, but you took every ounce of strength to move your eyes to spell botulism because you wanted them to test that, because we all felt like they missed something, like something was being missed.
Yeah. And that was one of those ones I remember specifically that we had to start over several times, and not just start over the whole word. It was like we'd get 3 letters in, and then it was just no, not a T. No, it's just, and I don't remember our way to figuring out like how do we go back a letter. I mean, you would ask me a lot. You're really good about asking the yes no questions. Is that the letter you were meaning to say? Yes. If not, just look down or don't do anything. Do we need to erase? Do we need to go back one? Do we need to start all over? Again, yes no questions. Keep it simple, because your loved ones or your friends or your family, whoever you're there visiting with, they don't have the energy. They don't have the strength. And so keep it as easy and as simple as possible, which means yes, no questions.
Yeah. And a side note is always have one point of contact, one communication person.
Yes, you definitely can't have 3 or 4 people trying to.
It's not charades. It's not like people going like, oh, he's guessing this. Oh, he's guessing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. That's not what we're doing here. We're not all trying to jump in and guess the answer that's coming up. Like, if he says like H-E, we're not trying to guess the next answer and the next word. And when you do that, it's more frustrating for the person that's trying to spell out the word and the person that's actually working with the person trying to spell the word. So
that's a very good point.
Shush, and one person needs to be a point of contact, because
exactly. And even for the person who's the point of contact, even for the person who's the main question,
right,
asker or the scribe who's writing it down.
Yeah.
You're not Google. Don't finish the sentence. Don't finish the word. Just let me spell it out. Because when you stop asking for letters and you're just asking it if it's this word, if it's that word, if it's that word, if you just go 3 more letters, you'll know. You don't have to keep. You're not Google or Siri. So just keep asking for the letters are right there. There's only 26 to pick from. Just go down the 5 different,
but
lines
I have to admit,
and pick.
when you would spell out the T and then the H, I really would get excited and be like or that or they,
those, that, there. Do you know how many words start with TH?
I know. And it
Just,
was so like, I didn't want to go through every letter and ask you. I wanted to just guess
You didn't want to go through it. You didn't want to go through it. Oh my, it took everything I had. And not even just you. You didn't want to go through it. Dude, that shit is crazy. Excuse my language.
Okay.
But whatever. What I'm saying is, for the other patients that are living this hell,
they get to enjoy
keep
the
it keep it as simple as possible. Just go through the letters and don't forget to ask space. Should I put a space here, like a space bar, or at the end of the word? Yeah, because like you would keep going and it'd be like 57 letter word, and I'm like, no, you have to space it out for it to make sense. And 2, when I'm done with this sentence, don't forget to ask, is there anything else you need? Because yes, there's more. And I couldn't figure out a lot of these times, I couldn't figure out what was more important to me. To eliminate the heat and get a fan or an ice pack, because I knew I had one shot. I had one shot to get what I needed. Now, do I need painkillers? Yeah. Do I need the fan placed on me? Yeah, absolutely. Do I need my ass wiped? Probably. But I only get one sentence before you figure it out. I know that. But by the end of it, by the end of one sentence, we're both drenched in sweat. We're both exhausted. You're ready to lay down in a hospital bed. I mean, it took a lot for everyone. Yeah, you want to hit me over the head with the board. I want to jump out the window if I can move, but I mean, it's funny now looking back, but it really did suck then, and that was only a few months ago.
True.
So it's crazy to think, and I don't want to forget what this is all about for me, and that's simply to not only raise awareness, but to let other patients and other patients, friends and family members know that I understand and I was there and I get it, and you're not alone, and there are people out there just like me who are willing to help. Several of them, Steve and Annie, they helped you out, they helped me out, they help people every day. There are support groups out there. One of them in particular on Facebook is GBS/CIDP Foundation International, and it's a support group that help people. They do conferences, they do symposiums, they spread knowledge and awareness and education, and there's some other really amazing groups on Facebook. You just search it. Or obviously, if you're where I was, your family member or your friends have to search those up, because I couldn't hold my phone. I couldn't read the screen. I couldn't do anything. I was completely paralyzed from head to toe. So those reaching out to those groups in those terrifying moments and times is very important. Time is of the essence when it comes to this disease. That's proper diagnosis and timeliness in starting of treatments is of the utmost importance. You've got to get proper diagnosis. You've got to get treatment started immediately because, it is, it could be a matter of hours, that you go downhill. It could be a day before you lose the power of speech. It happens so fast and it affects, everyone differently, but
Well,
we don't have time to waste in this disease.
I think I posted something the other day on a CIDP, Guillain-Barré Instagram feed that I had found, which I had not found any Instagram groups since the other day. And anyway, I found one, and a young lady had stated on the post that her father had been diagnosed with Guillain-Barré, and he was sent to a long-term facility, and he passed away there, unfortunately. And it made me extremely sad. Not that, not, I say this with very, very respect. Not the fact that he passed away that made me sad. The fact that he passed away at a long-term facility made me sad because I feel like he didn't have to pass away.
Yeah.
I feel like
I was really close to that.
Yeah. I feel like if you would have been sent to a long-term facility, there would have been a high probability that could have happened. And I would have never, ever let that happen. But that's because I am crazy, and I would have been by your side 24/7, and my life would have been staring at you, right? In a bed, and making sure you didn't die. But that wasn't the protocol, or isn't the protocol of most of those facilities, right? And when someone goes with Guillain-Barré and you don't know how severe their case is, and you just suggest or guess that it's just a typical Guillain-Barré, you could be completely wrong, right? So if they would have sent you away and said, he has Guillain-Barré, he needs to go to a long-term facility, you would have passed away, for sure.
Yeah, just give him some PT, OT. He'll be, that's what happens.
And I guarantee in other states and other places this happens. And I'm not faulting anything or anyone. I'm saying that there needs to be more. People need to care more. The system needs to care more. Families need to be aware. Just because you're diagnosed with something that says, one thing doesn't mean it is one thing, because
yeah, that's right.
I learned quickly, you learned quickly that you were diagnosed with something that was flat out in your face. That's what it is, right? Because that's what it was. But your body decided that it was going to be something different. And as it progressed and as it got longer, if they would have sent you away, you would have been too far from a hospital to survive at the point that you needed to be in the hospital. And because I fought and I was not a nice person at times, I did not let that happen, right?
You kept advocating, and that is so important.
Right. And when people are in the hospital and they get forced or told, let's say told, not forced, they get told they have to go to a long-term facility care, you don't have to go to a long-term facility care. So I think that that is another topic that we probably should talk on in another time, because this one is about communication, but anyone can reach out to us and we can help them. But you do not have to leave the hospital ever. And if they tell you that, they're telling you that because they want their bottom dollar to look better. And that's unfortunately true. And I'm not saying that to like put the hospitals down. I'm saying that because it's an actual factual truth. You cost the hospital more money by sitting there and they don't know what to do with you, right? They think this is what you have, so they're going to push you on, right? You have a stroke, they give you your medication, they push you on. They're not a place where they want to keep you for long term. That's what a long-term facility is. But long-term facilities are shit. Our state has not, our state, California, I don't know about other states, has not ever figured this out. And I don't know about any other area, but Southern California and our area has the worst long-term facility care places.
I've only heard that. I didn't
Yeah.
have a chance to visit any of them, and I probably should.
Oh, no, please don't. Because your mom, myself, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, we all went and looked at these places, and I will never, ever, in the time that I'm alive, put any of my family members in any of these places. I will take everything in my body to take care of my family members to not put them in these places, because the people are overworked, they're overrun, and whatnot, whatever. To another story. But
But I think, and just to take a step back a little bit, when you started this point, talking about advocating for your family members and not just accepting what you're told by either case management or the doctor in the white lab coat, right? Because we're taught, and from the time we're little, when you're told something by the doctor, that's like the end all be all. Like the doctor said so, right? So when you're told something by a licensed physician, an MD, you're like, well, he can't, he's infallible, right? He cannot be wrong. So if he says you have this illness, the next stop for you is to go to a long-term nursing facility. You live out your days with a trach in your throat, a peg tube in your stomach, in a hospital bed, and that's your existence from now on. So many people take that as, well, that's how it is now. That's how I live.
Well,
and that's what they wanted to do to me. And it's unacceptable.
Well, back
Go
up
ahead.
just a little bit, just for your clarification. Just because I know at this time you didn't know exactly when and what was said and what was happening.
No. Right. I'm still piecing timelines together.
So you are laying in a bed with the peg tube and the trach in your throat, and you've had probably 2 treatments of plasmapheresis at this time, and the doctors in ICU, right? Because there's doctors that specialize in everything. There's the ICU doctors, there's the neurologists, there's all these doctors that specialize, and they do not communicate as well as everyone wants them to, right? So we all learn that.
Yeah.
So you're in ICU well, now I think second week of plasmapheresis, I think you've been in ICU for like 4 weeks. And they're like, oh man, he's taking up this room, right? This is a long time. 3 weeks in the corner. We finally got moved to a window room after I'd been begging because you were like in ICU delirium, So I've been begging for them to move you, and we got moved to a window room, and then I get the caseworker come in, or the whatever she is comes in and tells me, he needs to go to a long-term care facility. And I'm like, no. Look.
No, we just got the good room with the window.
Right.
We're not doing that.
And I told them, and I know everyone cannot say this, and I know this is something that probably scares a lot of people, but I told them he will never go to a long-term facility, so you could just finish that conversation with nothing and start working on the conversation of he's coming home with me. And I told them that, and they were floored, right? They're all like, oh my God, she's going to have a ventilator, and she's going to have this, and she's going to have this. Because at that time you had, you're fully ventilated. You couldn't breathe on your own. And I'm like, I don't care. He's coming home with me. I don't care.
I don't know why that's so hard for them to understand, though. I mean, if you've got the knowledge,
it's a lot more paperwork.
And it all comes down to it's not my job. It's more paperwork. How many times have we seen that where it's no, that's a different department.
Yeah, not a lot of family members.
I get that part, and not a lot of family members can physically and mentally do that. I get that part. But if you've got someone, right, you have an amazing partner or family member willing and able to do that and to take care of someone, why would you ever say no?
Right.
Like, why would you say nope? What is it? Is it insurance? Is it money?
Yeah.
Is it like, why would you be like, I know you're willing to take your family member home. Yes, we've trained you. You've passed all the tests. We I don't know what the right word is. We accept and we acknowledge that you're capable of doing this and giving them this kind of medical care.
Right. It's not like they send you home. They're just like, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like here's a YouTube video. Good luck.
Right.
I hope you make it. It's not like that.
Yeah, I did not know.
You've got to get trained. You've got to get.
I mean, obviously,
a backup. I mean,
I knew how to do CPR, like the basics. We have children, so I knew how to do CPR and like that basic care. But I had to learn how to remove your trach. I had to learn how to clean your trach. I had to learn how to feed you through your feeding tube. I had to learn how to, if your feeding tube got like clogged, how to clean that. I had to learn simple.
How to give me dosages of medications through my feeding tube.
Medications.
That's the whole thing. Like you had to turn into a nurse before they were willing and able to send me home under your care.
Oh, and straight cath you. I had to learn how to
straight cath me. Yes. No. You put that up into my penis. Every 4 to 6 hours, you shoved the tube up me and in me to the back of my bladder.
Yeah. But I was way better than
sucked out the. You were the best one to do it, and I had it done by multiple nurses and people, and by far you were the best. But I also learned by that time that relax and just take it. Do not clench up, because that just jams you up, and that hurts way worse if you clench up. Yeah. So I learned not to do that. But you were by far the best at giving me that pain. So thank you.
I mean, I don't want an award for that, but I had to learn that, and I literally had to learn how to clean your entire body by myself with a room full of people watching, and get you into a harness, get the harness all around you, get you from the harness to a chair, and then get you from the chair outside so that they knew I could do it. I had to do this like in front of a group of people.
The good old Hoyer lift.
It was a whole thing that they made me, it was like a gauntlet because they didn't think I was going to take care of you properly. And I'm thinking to myself, like, are you serious? Like, you want me to send my husband to a long-term care facility to where one nurse is taking care of 4 or 5 different people, but you don't think I can take care of him? I've been here every day. Like, I got this. But I do appreciate them training me because I turned into obviously a little nurse while I was there. But
Absolutely. You had to,
yeah.
in order for them to give you the okay. And when it came to the trach, not all of that stuff, but when it came to the trach, we had to have a backup person.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to have your mom step up and say, yes, I will be that
Yeah.
backup and I'll learn how to do it. And as scared as she
She
was,
was so scared.
I was even more scared because of her fear. Did not give me confidence. Not that I didn't think she could do it and be fine. It's just she was
She
so
was
scared
so
that
scared.
that made me scared. You
Well, I
know,
mean,
if she was like, "I got you, don't worry," I'd be
you
like,
have to
"Cool,
understand.
nothing
Okay,
to worry
so
about here."
I have,
Oh my, I don't know how to turn off that volume, but Jake
I
keeps
know
hitting
he's
me up.
hitting me up too. I had an abundance of confidence because I didn't want you to feel worried, right? So I felt like if I didn't show you confidence, you would feel scared or worried, and that's not good for anyone, right? So I wanted you to know that I got this. I got it. So I did that with my mom. So when we did the training, I always tried to make sure she felt comfortable and knew that I got, no matter what, I got it, mom. I got it. It's okay. Like, and I wanted you to hear me telling her that because I wanted you to know that it was okay. Right? I wanted you to know,
Yeah,
like, okay, you, even though we're taking this out of your throat to clean it, you can still breathe, right? So I constantly try to reassure that into you because
yeah,
it's a fear factor. It's like, oh my God, you're taking away my airway, right? Um,
yeah. It's
right.
terrifying.
And anyone with a trach would know and would attest to the fact that when you take that away, it's a whole different process, right? You have a hole here and you have your mouth. Well, this is the first contact of air. So when you take that away and you have a hole, you cannot breathe, right? Unless you put your fingers over that hole, and that's a whole different feeling, whatever. But so I wanted to always make sure that you knew I knew it was okay. I knew how to take care of it. I knew that I would be there to make sure you were okay. Because if I didn't say those things and do those things, my mom would freak out and she'd have panic attack because the instructors are very
Yeah,
matter of fact and they were great. We had
yeah.
amazing
It's
RT.
that communicate again, and that comes back to communication. It's vital.
Yeah.
Um, in life overall, but especially in this sort of medical situation, it's absolutely imperative that you have good
Yeah.
communication.
Well, I have to call our son back.
Yep.
So we're gonna wrap this up,
Um,
but I I think
yeah.
that the big topics and the big points are that we did use the board. If the little board works for you,
Yeah.
works for people, that's great. But if it doesn't, get a bigger board, right? Get a bigger board, write down like key sentences, key words. I personally always took notes because I wanted to make sure I knew every single day what was happening. Loma Linda has a portal that I could keep track of every single day, his blood work, his things. So I was on top of it. So every day that I came in, I had my questions ready for the doctors because I felt like the more you engage with them, the more they pay attention to you. And that just is my opinion,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely. And you know, as we wrap it up here, this is just a couple of things I wanted to go over. Just like you mentioned on IG, we had the faces of GBS and CIDP. That was that group that you had mentioned. That's Instagram there on.
That's an amazing group. Like those people. Yeah,
they are. I just came across that when you sent it to me just a couple of days ago. But that's a good group right
amazing.
there.
Yeah,
absolutely. On Facebook, the one that I was talking to you about, and the ones that I'm a part of are GBS, CIDP Survivor. There's right here. There's so many of them. There's Guillain-Barré syndrome. There's Guillain-Barré survivors. There's GBS, CIDP, Support International. There's so many. You can just keep searching and keep going. There's a ton of them. Foundation International, that was another one. So, and again, we're just here to say, we're not medical physicians. No. We're not in that industry at all. We're just saying, this is my story. This is our story. This is what we physically went through. And we're here to let you know that you're not alone. And we're happy to help, even if that just means listening. So we'll keep putting these videos out. And if you need someone to talk to, you hit us up. My Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook, all of the social medias, all Rolled 740 Inc. My email address is trapperrolled740inc@gmail.com. Phone number 909-303-1069. You can hit me up anytime. And I just want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you to Charlie for my new hat for my birthday, and his wife, Katie, for going out with us to dinner. I appreciate you guys, and the staff at Loma Linda. They're amazing. And to my beautiful wife, thank you for keeping me alive and continuing to stand by my side and to keep doing what we do. So thank you.
Of course. I love you.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye, baby.